Welcome to the round table. I am Jennifer Eller, and with me today is my co-host, Mike Hill, and our producer. Why are you giving me the bug
I
eyes?
was just thinking, I was telling Nick whenever you look, I got to make sure I'm not grumpy today because I'm trying to quit chewing.
Oh.
So I'm like, yeah, I got home last night and Sarah was like, do you want me to buy you a can of chew? Like, you're a little bit on edge.
So your bug eyes is kind of like you're trying to smile at me with your eyes or something?
I was
You're
just I'm sitting here thinking, I got to smile because I might be a little edgy today. Might be on the edge of things today, but it's probably a good thing.
Yeah, it'll be a good thing in the long run.
Yeah.
Just stay diligent. You got it.
Yeah.
And our producer, Nick Wilson.
Who's not trying to quit chewing because he has no bad habits.
Do you have a camera, Nick?
I do.
Okay, all right. And then our special guest today is Erika Petre.
Yay.
Hi, Erika.
Thank you.
So she's been looking forward. She's been so excited about being
So
on.
excited. Yep. But this has been a long time coming, I would say. I'm actually surprised it hasn't happened sooner. So, finally made it happen.
Yeah. So it's only March, but everybody keeps thinking it's summer. So what is the thing that you're looking forward to the most when summer comes?
Good question. We actually started last year, so it's really new, but we went to Jellystone. And I was kind of like,
You guys
never.
are campers?
Well, not like in a tent, but they have cabins up there, obviously.
They do?
So,
I didn't know
there's
that.
a couple different locations, and the one we have is like a pretty big campground.
Yeah.
So they have tons of cabins. People bring RVs.
That's
Some
awesome.
people do just bring a tent,
Yeah.
which to me is like,
No.
No tent camping. Yeah.
Logistically with kids, it couldn't happen.
Right.
So we did that last year. It was back in June, and it was so much fun. We had the best time. So, gonna do that again at some point in the summer. I'm hoping the one thing that happened, which it was so bizarre because it was June, but the week we went, it was like in the 60s.
Oh, wow.
So we didn't get to enjoy they had like a water park and everything. So I'm just hoping we go when it's actually warm outside to enjoy all that.
So are you, could you rough it? Or does that, like if you went on a mission trip and you hiked up into the mountains and you had to sleep in the...
If it's for God, I mean, I'll do it. But otherwise, no.
Roughing it's not your thing.
It's not. No, no. Taylor loves it. That's how he grew up.
He's a Navy SEAL. He's supposed to.
Well, he's not. He's not a SEAL, but he is. And
I tell everybody he's a Navy SEal. I tell everybody.
A lot of people do. A lot of people say that.
Just say that.
But he jumped in the water, so what's the difference between what he did and a Navy SEAL? I mean,
he's a rescue swimmer.
He is a rescue swimmer, right?
But he's still
was.
Special Forces.
Well, right. That's still the same thing.
Elite.
Yeah,
Same
I think
thing.
I think if I'm correct, Navy SEALs and what he did are the only two in the Navy that fall under Spec Ops. So he's up there with the SEAL, but not quite as intense as a SEAL. So
We'll just keep calling him a Navy SEal.
Just make it
seem
easy.
way tougher.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, if you just call him that, nobody will know the difference.
Right.
Right? He's got the tattoos and all the crap all over him. He would look like one.
Right.
Okay, but you're not going to rough it.
No.
Okay.
Typically, no. We camped. Well, he camped out back with the kids one year, and I ended up inside. It's it's not my thing. I'm like, I want my bed. I want to be cozy. Yeah. So we'll stick to a cabin when we go.
Yeah, but I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. So, looking forward to that.
And then, what is your favorite type of food?
Whoa.
I told her I'm going to come up with new questions today.
I know. I love it. That is exciting.
Are you a foodie like Taylor?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Like, probably too much revolves around food for us. Like, it's a big thing for us. I try to eat healthy as much as I can, but if I'm gonna go for it, it's typically Mexican food.
I was hoping you were going to say that, and I wonder.
Are you?
Just because you lived in San Diego and you probably had authentic Mexican food. And
Why?
So
They're Mexicans in San Diego or what?
Well, they're right there on the border. I mean,
Are you serious?
I have no idea. I mean,
Well,
So you haven't
Mexico,
been.
San Diego's like right here. I think,
We are on
you
the
know.
board. Like, we're 45 minutes from Tijuana.
Oh, really?
Yes.
No, I had no idea.
So,
Geography.
So-
That's not a strong suit either, is it?
Thanks, Jennifer. Yeah, just chalk that one up there with the rest of them. I mean, are you saying
I'm
like
surprised you
there's not
didn't know.
authentic Mexican restaurants around here?
I would say Chava's is the closest. Yeah, but no, it's completely different in San Diego. Yeah. But the one thing that like we always missed in San Diego is queso is not a thing there. So you didn't get that, but you got way better food, definitely. So yeah, that was wonderful.
Well, the
when we
funny
were out
thing
there.
is like, so all of the Hispanic people that we hire, like if you go eat at their house, it's nothing like a Mexican restaurant.
For sure, yeah.
Or even an authentic Mexican restaurant.
Yeah.
It's
Why?
nothing like it.
What do they fix?
A lot of tamale type things.
Tamales,
and
birria.
Yeah, I mean, and the
yeah.
I mean, and the stuff will just burn your eyeballs out. I mean, everything is
It's all
hot.
super spicy,
Like, well, it just
yeah.
seems like everything
Yeah.
was hot, and I don't know if I could even describe it. Like all of the different, like the soups, the
Yep.
things that you just wouldn't assume that. You know, you go into the Mexican restaurant, you're getting a burrito,
Yeah.
a taco,
Chimichanga.
yeah, a quesadilla,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
chips and salsa, or steak fajitas
Yeah.
or chicken fajitas. I've never ate that at any.
Which, yeah, like, so if you go to like a taco stand in San Diego,
Okay.
which is like your drive-through,
Yeah.
that's where you get the more authentic stuff. But I worked at a Mexican restaurant out there for a couple years, and that's more of like your mainstream stuff. Like
Okay.
you can get fajitas there and chimichangas
Right.
and that as well. But
So do you like
It's-
the authentic stuff, or do you
oh
like the?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was pregnant with Crew, I wanted a Cali burrito. That's all I wanted. And you can't replicate it. Like, you have to have, like, the real deal recipe. And so, as much as we tried, it just never was quite it. So, yeah. But, yeah, we had that all the time. And where we lived in North San Diego County, it was just a lot of Mexican restaurants. So, it was at our disposal. So, yeah. Yeah.
Look at that geography lesson and food lesson.
I get it all
There you
today.
go.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start talking about your childhood a little bit. Which I
Okay.
think you told me you did not grow up in church.
I did not grow up in
Not.
church. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Which I think a lot of people assume we did, but yeah, no, we did not. And I was thinking about it. One of my first memories with my family at a church was I was in between 10 to 12, I'd say, but I was getting baptized. And it was, again, the first time I'd been to church with my family. So I didn't know any different, but it definitely was not a profession of faith because that did not exist. But yeah, it was in the Methodist church here in Huntington. And I don't know why we did it. I don't know if it was something that my mom did for a specific reason because it was me and all my siblings.
You all
yeah.
got baptized at the same time?
Yeah. And it wasn't like like how we do baptism
Yeah,
here. I'm
right.
pretty sure it was like kind of like a sprinkling
Yeah.
ordeal. Yeah. So that was my first experience. But I did go to like in middle school and high school with friends, youth groups, and campus life, that kind of stuff. But yeah, other than that, never really went to church. It was just around me from like friends. So yeah. And then high school, I would say was when I started to get a little bit more involved. That in high school, I did give my life to Jesus. And I remember that, and it was authentic.
How'd it happen?
I was at a youth group, and again, a different church, but here in Huntington, and yeah, it just
Yeah.
I had yeah.
So it was like a gathering or just a normal youth group? You know, I didn't know if they had like a bigger get together and then you went to something. Not that
yeah.
it matters. I was just
No,
curious.
no. I guess I don't really remember that specific
Yeah.
day, what it was, but I would assume it was just a regular youth group.
Right.
Yeah, and I had just felt it on my heart, and things did for a while shift, and you know, I as much as you can be on your own. Because again, in my family, I don't want to make it sound like my parents were great and are great, but that just wasn't a part of what I was used to. So they did everything they knew to be great parents and did a wonderful job, but it just was without that aspect. So I was kind of in my faith journey on my own. So I did as much as I could, but eventually I fell out as I got older in high school.
So what
shifted.
was that, Erika? You didn't share with me, so I want to hear what did
the,
you
the,
do?
fall, the falling out?
Yes.
Well, yeah, which is so funny because we've known each other for so long, and I'm like, I've never shared that part of my story.
We don't always share all those.
We don't, no. And I'm not ashamed whatsoever, just to make that clear. It's just, it just doesn't come up a lot.
Right.
But yes, in my probably late junior, senior year in high school, things, like in your earlier years, you party and you drink and you do things, because everyone's doing that.
Right.
That's normal, or at least to me it was. But senior year, I met some people who were going down a little bit of a deeper path into that, and drugs were introduced in my life at that point. And I think back, and I don't know how, but I never got addicted to anything, but it was just every weekend. Every weekend it was what I was doing. I became very sneaky, and I would, say I was one place, be somewhere else. And
your dad being a cop didn't scare you.
Well, and if you've ever been around Steve, I mean, the funniest thing is, I've coached with Steve. I coached with him for, when I was coaching in the middle school, then you'd go up and Steve was helping out at the high school. That guy is loud, intimidating.
You think he's intimidating?
Well, again,
enough because of
you're
he's
just
bigger and a
off
cop.
and you're watching him
I hear you. Yeah.
When he's excited about something.
Yes.
He's for sure intense.
Yes.
This is the guy that he's into everything. I don't remember what the time was. I think it was after we were done coaching together when he tries to race somebody and ends up pulling his hamstring so bad he ends up in the hospital.
Or the time I think he passed out one time on the field and
Yeah, he's running so hard and fell down to win. Or in the weight room, you get him in the weight room. He was a huge, loved the weight room, was really strong. And let's go, give me another. That kind of stuff. So thinking of that and then your daughter's
I
out
know.
there.
I think there's a couple different parts to it is why. So again, I was sneaky.
Yeah.
I think
you were good at it.
I was good at it.
Yeah.
Not something I ever want to pride myself in, but I was good at it. And, the other thing is, I'm sure to an extent, he didn't want to there was 7 of us growing up, and I was the youngest of 7. So, I'm sure it was just, he was busy, and he has always worked several jobs. So, he was present, very much so, but maybe not as evident to him. But there was one time where he for sure got me good when he I got in trouble. We were at a party, cops got called. I was inside sleeping, but I had to come out. Yeah, and the police officer took me home, and my dad just told me, he said, I'm just disappointed. And that wrecked me. That got me. So I was caught at one point, but it was just something that it was, and I'm responsible for everything I did. But again, it was just the group of people I was hanging out with. We were, just all experimenting and doing a lot more than we should at that age. And that lasted for well over a year, I'd say. And then I just got to a point where it was too much. And
it's crazy you could just turn it off.
Well,
You
it
know what
took
I mean?
time, definitely.
But
but
usually once you start going down those roads, it's not something.
you don't. You usually go deeper and deeper in it. And again, that's where I'm so amazed that I never got addicted to anything long term.
Was there somebody to help pull you out? Like if somebody's like, hey, like you probably ought to like knock this off, or
Yeah.
or is
Not
it just
to my
your own decision?
There's not, I mean, Taylor, I would say once, things kind of come full circle. We had been together before this time, split up because he went away to the military, and I was kind of going down this path.
So you guys were dating in high school.
We did date in high school, yes.
Okay.
My sophomore year, his senior year, dated for up until he left for the military, so a little over a year. And then kind of kept in touch, but not much. And he came home for, I think it was Christmas time. He had a couple weeks where he came home, and we were actually both at Ball State and ran into each other down there. And
And you weren't going to Ball State.
I was not going to Ball State.
What goes on at Ball State?
I was going to Ball State, but I wasn't,
Why does everybody go to Ball State on the weekend? Yeah.
Yeah, great question, because
Yeah.
it's not that great. And so, we just ran into each other down there and reconnected. And it really was from like that moment on, we were back together. And we then, at the time, he was stationed in San Diego. And I don't know how long between that to me moving out to San Diego. I don't know the gap, but that is what happened. I was 19 and picked up, and we decided that I was going to move out there with him. And that was like the first point where things kind of slowed down for me. Yeah. So once I moved out there, and again, military life. So as you imagine, a lot of drinking, a lot of partying.
Right.
So we were definitely still in that scene. And we did that for a couple of years. And then we got engaged. And once we were engaged, we came home. And I don't know if you remember this, but you did a marriage counseling, because that's all we were here for.
Right.
Typically, it's, more than that.
Sims was like, Hill. That's
Yeah.
He never calls me by first name. Ever. He's like, Hill, you need to marry my daughter.
Yeah.
And so, we ended up getting together. And
Yep. We sat in the cafe, and
which was funny because we had been praying for Taylor for a long time, because
really,
how's this work? So Eric Goods,
it's his nephew.
I don't remember the whole thing, but
Yeah.
so Tony and Shelley came. Tony and Shelley were playing for Eric and Amy for the longest time.
Yeah.
And then they all came. Then we started, it was called Culturizing the Hills. So the Goods and the Knaves would take us to these restaurants like fancy restaurants, because we were not those people. So they would pick a restaurant once a month. We'd all go out. Anyway, we became pretty good friends. And then it was, I feel like we were praying for Dina. No.
Dina.
Yeah.
Yes, Taylor's mom.
Yeah, and then
Yes.
it and Taylor, who's off
Wow.
the deep end, So the funny thing was when he was like, "Hey," because that was the case, and Taylor had come on and off.
Yeah.
Dean had come, some, and then,
Right.
so we had heard the stories of Taylor for a long time.
Yeah.
and,
I never knew that, but that makes sense, obviously, with the connections and
right.
everything.
Yeah, and so then it was like, oh, Taylor's marrying Sims' daughter. Do you know what you're? And again, I'm thinking, do you know what you're getting into? Like, I told Sims, I said, does she know what she's getting into? Like, I've been praying for this kid forever, and I haven't heard any like he came out of it or anything yet. And I was like, oh no, he's great, he's really good. And
Yeah, from compared to what we were. So at that point, things were definitely better. So, but that was, and I don't know if Taylor's ever expressed that to you, but that moment was pivotal in our faith, like where things shifted. So once we met with you, that one time, I think we went back to San Diego, then came back home, we got married, and then after, when we went home to San Diego after our honeymoon, he was like, very adamant on like, we are going to church and things are changing,
Yeah.
which we both, I think, like knew at the time that like we had no foundation, like we needed something, because we were quite literally just moseying through life and, you know, living for ourselves. So, yeah, we went online and we just found the names of churches around us, which there were a lot. And we went to one that was less than 5 minutes away. And then that is where we stayed. We never went to a different
went to
church.
one church.
We went to one church, and it was a husband and wife. They were both the pastors of the church. And they were there that first morning when we walked in and greeted us. And Taylor just, he definitely, his faith took off a lot quicker than mine did. Yeah, and when I think back, I don't know why I was so hesitant, but I would assume it was because I wasn't quite ready to fully give up my lifestyle and, you know, what we did on a day-to-day. So, yeah, for him, it was like instant. Things really did shift for him in his life. And he pretty quickly after we started going, got involved in interning and
Yeah, that's the
all
thing
of that.
I remember,
So-
because Judy was like, you
Oh,
know,
Judy.
Judy was like, you are not going to believe this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what's it? You know, you remember Taylor? Yeah, I'm like, the Navy SEAL Taylor? We would laugh about it. Then she's like, he is in a church and interning in a church. And
yeah, and it was so radical. Like it happened. You kind of deal with like that. Like I think they call it like imposter syndrome now, where you're like me, like really, like is this right? Like, am I supposed to be the one doing this and in this position? Because it was just such a shift from what we were doing and how we were living. So I remember one of the first times he was asked to preach out there. I forget they had a special needs ministry, and I forget what it was called, but it was for that. And it was hard for him because he was still very fresh into scripture and learning everything. And so it was really interesting. But
how big of an adjustment was that to the military community, not just the military community, but the people you were hanging out with, for you guys to shift your lifestyle?
huge. Yeah. We definitely fell out of relationship with a lot of people. Yeah. And they were very, very blunt about like, Taylor had a couple encounters where people were like, oh, so now you're a good boy. Now you're, too good for us kind of thing.
Right.
And when you're not in your faith, I think that's what a lot of people kind of think about Christians. So we had a lot of that. And so we kind of teeter-tottered for a while where like we didn't want to lose our friends. So we spent a lot of time still doing what we used to do, but feeling, you know, kind of crummy about it the next day where we never did that before. So it took some time for me especially to you know, make that kind of full transition.
Right.
Yeah, and we're still working on it always, I think. Not like in that way, but you know, the everything of the world is just so in your face and prevalent, and so that's just always a battle.
Right.
Yeah. And then, so we were doing well, and then so we started that in 2017, going to church. And then 2018, I got pregnant with Ren, and had her in 2019. And that was, I was telling Jennifer about this, the hardest time in my life. So I was very postpartum, and I heard of like postpartum depression, but what I dealt with was postpartum anxiety. And so I had never heard of that. And so to me, I was like, what is wrong with me? Like I was constantly in fight or flight mode where I was like physically shaking all the time because I was just so anxious. And that was truly for the first year of her life that I dealt with that. And bless Taylor's heart, he did what he knew how to. Or as much as he knew how, how to help, he would pray with me and, just try to relax and just, try to breathe through it. And, when you
Is
don't.
that like a chemical thing that happens? Like the whole postpartum thing?
Yeah, I
Like
believe
after people
so.
have babies, like that's a...
I mean, your hormones are crazy.
Yeah.
Because some people don't deal with it real well, and there's a depression that comes with it. I mean, it should be a happy time of your life, but there's just so much coming at you. Trying to navigate your body and your feelings and a baby and crying and housework and it just seems like it's a mountain. But I never felt that, but I do remember all the new feelings that you felt.
Yes. And that's what people prepared me for. Like, it changes everything and that kind of ordeal. But this was, I knew more than just that. Like, this is more than just like sleepless nights and, all of the extra load. It was very debilitating, quite honestly. And you hear anxiety, you hear about that. But until you truly go through something like that where it is wrecking your world, I just can't explain it. It's just it was a very hard time in my life.
Yeah, see, I think I've talked about this before. So I always had a view of anxiety. I'm like, what the world's the matter with you? That type of view, like,
for sure.
What are you so anxious about? Like, how hard is it? Like, those things aren't really going on. I don't understand what you're getting so anxious about. And I would always attribute it back then of like, hey, scripture says don't be anxious. So like, get with God. Why can't you get it fixed? Those used to be the things that would go through my mind. And then I read a book on like people that had anxiety, and they just talk about like it had nothing, like they could just be sitting there and go into a state of like being completely paralyzed. Like it's nothing that they could control. And then I got to know people on a deeper level that struggle with that. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's kind of a butt face about it, in the beginning, because it's really, it's not just a get over it thing.
Right. Yeah. And you don't know what you don't know if you've never, if you've never experienced it. So, that's kind of like where, with the people in my life, same thing, where they just didn't understand it. And I didn't understand it.
Right.
This was my first time dealing with anxiety. I've always had anxiety to where it was more situational, but like you can avoid the, the situation or get out of it to where like it wasn't like where this was, it was so complex because I was like, I have this beautiful new baby that I love and I want to enjoy, but I have these horrible feelings that are associated with her. And so it was just so hard. And you don't, like, I was like, that's like, this is my life now, but I had a very hard time accepting what I was going through. I kept telling myself I just had the baby blues and that it was going to go away. And I would obsessively like read on it and figure out like the timeline from when, baby blues should go away. And when I passed that, I kind of would tell myself, oh, it'll get better when she can sit up on her own and I don't have to hold her all the time. It'll get better when she sleeps through the night. It'll get better when I'm not breastfeeding and she's not constantly on me. And so I would try to talk myself down and out of it, which none of those things, really helped. So
what did help?
Well,
did you have a support system? Like, how did you work through
that? It's so interesting because it's a very shameful kind of thing, or at least it was for me, because I had always prided myself in I was independent. I was, good and never had those types of struggles. So I did not share it with a lot of people. So it was just constantly, I was just in my own mind all the time, all day in and day out, just so anxious. And it would come with intrusive thoughts and just, bad things happening. So it was just a living nightmare for me. But we were in the church at the time, like I said. And so I eventually talked with my pastor And I just told her, like, I am not okay. And she was so understanding and supportive. She, you know, still at the time, I didn't know anybody who was going through that or had gone through it, but she helped where she could. And I remember her giving me certain scripture to read, and it was a lot of scripture about, you know, to not be anxious. And so I would repeat those in my, you know, to myself over and over again. And it did help to an extent. And I would just pray constantly for the Lord to take it. Just pray and pray. And I remember one day I was home alone with her. Taylor was at work, and I was weak, and I got on my hands and knees, and I cried out to the Lord, and I for the first time truly felt like I actually surrendered myself to him. Oh, wow. I think I always kind of held on to like I need you, but like not like I can still do things on my own. Like I need you, but not fully. Where this was like, I cannot do this anymore. Like I am not okay. And it was one of those moments where it just was like his peace fell over me. And I just soaked in that for as long as I could. And it grew my faith in that moment, because when you finally come to a point where you understand, like, it's not just like an option, but like, I need you. Like, there's no other way around this. Like, you are the only thing that's going to get me through. That was that moment for me in my faith that just and it didn't just like from that moment on, like I wasn't like healed from my anxiety. Right. I still very much dealt with it. But it was a turning point for me. And I understood, because I didn't know, it sounds so silly, but at the time I didn't know to pray about those things really, or like the little things of just to get you through, you know? So it was just, like a stepping stone in my faith. And then what happened was Taylor broke his hip before she was born, but he had broke his hip, but we were going through trying to figure out if he was going to be able to stay in the military or not. He eventually got medically separated. And then it was right after Ren's first birthday where we decided that we were going to move back home. And then that was, although I was like, I'm not leaving San Diego, even though I was suffering. So
you didn't want to go,
Oh, no. I was like, and I was like, and you're going to take me back to Huntington?
Yeah,
like,
right.
Of all places.
Nobody wants to come to Huntington. We're with you guys.
Hey, I'm just telling you.
Well, I am an advocate for Huntington now, though. That changed. I love it here.
I think he could say the same thing.
Yeah. Yes. So, but at the time I was like, we're not leaving beautiful San Diego. Like, we've been out here for almost 7 years. Like, this is where our home is. And Taylor really guided that decision where we talked it through. And we, eventually I was on board with it. And when we came home, I was like, this is what I needed. Like, to be back. To be back here. And to be back with family. And then I just felt that support in a different way. So moving back home was, I didn't know at the time, but the biggest blessing.
Why did you want to move home? Like, what was the driving factor to come back home for him? Because for you, you're like in San Diego, because he could have pretty much
and he had a job offer that was great that we could have stayed out there and supported ourselves and been fine. But the conversation he had with you, I don't know if you remember, he really felt called into ministry, and he didn't know what that looked like out there. The church we were with talked about doing like a church plant and, maybe him doing that. And then, so I don't know if you know this, but Mike had, reached out to Taylor, just kind of saying like, hey, I've seen this path you're going on and just want to hear more. So they FaceTimed, and that really like kind of drove it home for him. Like,
Which
he's like, I feel.
It's actually weird. I mean, if you think about it, because, I mean, I had no contact with Taylor, at all after that, other than just you get reports from Judy usually, like, he's doing well, like, things are going good. And, yeah, I just think that's more of a confirmation sometimes just how God works, because it was, for me, it was like, because we've been processing for a long time. Like, when you're a church planner, the succession plan of a church planner has to be way long term.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way to, hey, I'm going to be gone in a year or 2 years.
Right.
So you have to work through that process of trying to figure out. I'm like, as of today, it would probably be a bad thing. Like, I haven't really even thought about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Of what that looks like. And I've always been a person that would be like, I love to believe in the people that God sends you instead of the ones that are already trained up.
Yeah.
I love seeing people, that come in that, I mean, if you look around, barely anybody here does what they were hired to do.
Yeah.
That's
very true.
That's very
true.
A lot of people just came in because they were great people. Like, we just love people and see what God does, from that. And so that's why I said it's just kind of weird to be like, I mean, it's not even like Taylor was around here.
Yeah.
And it's just like, hey, just
Yeah, it was definitely
what's
a God
going
thing.
on?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. I think it was really neat to see how that.
Yeah. And even then, when we decided to move home, nothing was guaranteed as far as him working
I know. That's
here.
what I told him. I'm like, I have no idea what this even means. Like, I don't have a job for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it would.
I mean,
and it was
thought.
a new position essentially created for him. I remember you guys for the longest time didn't even know what to call it.
Well, no, I mean, I get to know people position.
Yeah.
Yeah, come
Right.
and just spend time being in relationships with people and
Right.
try to get it figured out. But yeah, no, that's why I wondered if there was other motivation, because like I said, it's not like you were coming back to a
For sure
a
thing.
great job offer with lots of security.
Yeah.
You
No,
know, so-
definitely not. The only other thing I would say is family.
Yeah.
So, my experience with my postpartum journey was a big part of it, and just knowing that we needed that support. But, we just felt called to be back here, essentially. We just, really felt like this is where we were meant to be. And I think Taylor especially, wanted to show his family who Jesus was. That was, and that for both of us, that was heavy on our hearts. Because once you experience that and, have him, you want others to know that too. And you want the people who you love, especially, to be saved.
The people you're closest to.
The people you're closest to. Yeah. And that's something we still to this day are, always focusing on, because you want to see those people in heaven, essentially. Like at the end of the day, like the grand, that's what our focus is.
Right.
And it truly breaks your heart to think that might not be the outcome. So that has been something for the past, we came home in 2020, so it's 2024, I think.
Yeah, no, I know. It's crazy that it's been
I said
that long.
2023 the other day. So yeah. So the past 4 years, along with us growing in our faith every day, it's still, that's like the other thing is people, I think because of his position, expect us to have grown up in the church and just have so much knowledge. But we're only 7 years into our journey. And so we're constantly learning and walking along that, this journey with other people. And that's where we are.
Did you have, again, I was going to ask other questions, but I always did you have a list of stuff that you wanted to? Yeah, so I'm just curious. So when you read books all the time, you read, at least I do, so you read a lot on military wives.
Yeah.
Like the challenge of being a military wife. And then the funny thing is, and then the challenge of being a ministry wife. Like both of those are Does that mean water's running somewhere, Nick? Do you hear that? I kept hearing the water running. I'm like, oh no, something's
like in the locker rooms.
Something's overflowing somewhere. But anyway, so I've often thought that because just being in ministry and being the wife of, of somebody in ministry, that's a challenge. So you've been through the two biggest challenges, at least from what I read. Being a military wife because of just the way that works, and then the same concept. So what do you think are some of the greatest challenges of being a ministry wife? Because I know that, at least I know. I just read the books that talk about, the wives that your husband's gone, and
and that would
just
be
the cultural thing that you're around is like you're in it, you're immersed in it. It's not like a job that somebody does. You're immersed in the military community.
Yeah.
Well, ministry's really no different.
Yeah,
like
and I've never thought of it that way. I've never compared the two in that sense, but that's very true.
Yeah, they're very much the same.
Yeah,
thing,
where it's not like a 9 to 5.
Yeah,
you
go
home,
and then you come home and talk about your job. You're in at least what they say in the books, like you're immersed in a community in the military, and it's the same here. If you're going to do it well, and it's not even ministry husbands. Like when you're in it, it's not just somebody goes and does ministry. It is a family thing. And
100%.
You're immersed in all of that. And although I think that has great blessings, I also think it has great challenges.
Yeah. So for military, the struggle was, it's really big in the military culture for men to be unfaithful, especially when they're on those long deployments. They deploy for, 8 to 10 months, sometimes longer at a time. So, that's something that you see a lot, and you also deal with a lot of the partying scene. And then, after military is a lot of the trauma that they had gone through that you then carry on through, after. Right. And so, a lot of different things. But with ministry, like you said, it's not something that just, Taylor it doesn't, his day maybe some days doesn't start till 10, but he's doing something till then 10 p.m., or get a call and it takes him away from what we were doing. But I can never be upset with him because I know what he's doing. But something I know he does struggle with is balancing that time. And when do you, set up boundaries, I guess? And when do you say okay, this time is devoted to just my family? And tonight we are a part of a Jim and Ellen Nunley's group, their life group, and that's something that is exciting because they've opened it up to kids as well, and so those things I'm always running towards head first because I'm we can all be together and do it. So that's what really helps is when it's stuff where we're together, and his job specifically is relational. So we do a lot of dinners with friends and other families, and so that's been the biggest blessing because we have grown our community so much by just getting to know people. Yeah,
it's the both and. I've always said the greatest thing about being in ministry is the blessing of all of the relationships, but it's hard sometimes when to separate out some of the tough stuff. You know what I mean? Don't carry home every conversation that's you know what I mean? It's because it's one thing to go and say, I had a bad day at work.
Yeah.
I think when you come home and talk through some of the challenges in ministry, you're then with those people. You know what I mean? You're in the community of those people. It's just different than everything being separated. So I think it's, I've always said finding a rhythm because there is no balance. That's what I always say. There is no such thing in ministry of ever finding a balance. It's finding a rhythm, and that rhythm changes all of the time. So the rhythm of your family and how things work is different at different times because trying to work out your schedule will be did I get enough of this time and enough of that time? It just, unfortunately, it never seems to work out that way.
Yeah.
But
is that something for you that you is like is one of your main
Well, the
struggles?
rhythm thing's important for me because it's like there are certain things I have to do to fill my soul. Like there's no way I could be anything to Life Church if I didn't know my own personal rhythm. So there is a personal rhythm, and that personal rhythm can be how much time I am with people. Like I can only do so many meetings of like till the rhythm gets out, right? So that you just no more are you good, or like sitting down and studying. Like I cannot sit and study for a long time. Like I will go absolutely bananas.
Drives
like
you
it's not a
crazy.
good
Yeah.
rhythm for me.
Yeah.
So doing it on and off and doing it in unconventional ways. Like I told people when I used to feed veal calves, like I wrote messages on feed bags all the time. Like the kids would go out there and they would
That's
read
awesome.
the messages that I was doing for Sunday, because I'd just be thinking, because that's, when you do jobs like that, that's pretty much all you do.
Yeah.
Just think, and so you go out there and I'd messages. So anyways, finding that rhythm, and then once you're good and healthy, then it's finding the rhythm with your family.
Yeah.
Right? Because it does no good to find the rhythm with your family if you're
First.
not healthy,
Yep.
right? Or you're not in a good rhythm. So how can those rhythms go together where you're getting what you need and that it fits inside of what's good for the family? You know, because like I said, it's seasonal, right? Like it's different
it's always
in different
changing.
seasons and in different times. So I think just talking about it and figuring it out, and what are the things that we can do as a family. Like we used to do youth and we all did it together. You know, so that was a rhythm that worked because Sherry was there and all the kids were there and we just all did it together. So it didn't seem like I'm off doing
your
and
own
then
thing.
you're here taking care of the kids.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
or whatever those things were. But just trying to find a rhythm.
Yeah, and that's where I know you've also expressed you took kind of a step back in what you did too for that same reason, because it's just a lot to carry everything that you were doing at the time.
I never find a good rhythm, so I'm just like,
You have never found a good rhythm?
I don't know
wonder.
if I ever have, honestly.
Really?
Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
Oh, I don't want to.
Why not? Why not?
We want you to.
Maybe you can help give wisdom to Erika,
Yes.
who's going to go through these things.
Which I need.
No.
Like
We can
I
talk
need.
one-on-one.
What about Nick? Nick, what about you?
Cry. That was good.
Rhythm, time.
Oh, I'm awful with time management.
Well, I mean,
You guys are making me feel better though, because I like it's what we often talk about at home. Taylor will come home sometimes and he's like, I just miss you guys.
Yeah.
And it breaks your heart because, you know, but when you're in this line of work, you know that's what you're sacrificing, you know? So it's just hard because it's like, where do you set up that boundary? Where do you say, like, you know, and most people, I don't think figure out what you have. Like they just said, you know, like a lot of people don't know to think through like, no, I need to set up a rhythm and make this work for myself and then my family and first and foremost time with God. So yeah, it's just always a struggle. It's always hard to figure out where you're supposed to be, and we're always busy. All of us are always busy, but are we busy doing the right things?
Well, and I think the biggest thing in ministry, and we've talked about this a lot, is that the struggle in ministry is wanting to be known.
Yes.
So when you do a job, like this was the big thing in the beginning. Like I grew up in a culture where training other people to do your job was a mandate. Like you didn't get a choice. Like the idea was, if we're going to keep you on, you need to learn to train other people to do your job. And so you were never the center.
Yeah.
When you come to ministry, people in ministry struggle not being the center. And honestly,
Interesting.
people in the church want you to be the center, right? They want you to be the man. They want you to be, and this goes in every area, whether it's Nick's, is this true, Nick? Like, even in your area, people want you to be the man. You're going to be the go-to guy. You're going to be the answer man. You're going to give every single thing, right?
Yeah.
Jennifer?
Oh, yeah.
And what's hard is when you say, like when I used to say this all the time, even clear back when the church was small and people were like, what's going on? I'm like, I have no idea. You need to go ask somebody else. I have no idea what's going on.
You're one
Go
person.
Go ask somebody else.
Yeah, they expect
that's
you to know
doing
it all.
And they're like, how can you be the lead pastor of the church and not knowing what's going on? And I'm like, because it was never intended for it to ever be that way. And so I think the struggle in anything when it comes to ministry is there's an expectation. And unfortunately, in ministry, people like being the man. You don't want it, but you want it.
Yeah.
Right? Like you
That
don't
makes
want to be
sense.
the one that everybody calls. But when they do call you, you feel like you have a sense of worth.
For sure.
And when nobody calls you, you're like, what do they even need me for?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I think so I think it's a struggle in finding a rhythm to be okay with somebody else getting the glory.
Yeah, that's so
Like
true.
somebody else is doing it and they're doing, right?
Yeah, come work in tech.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll learn that real quick.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I think I think that's a struggle. I think for people to not be like,
The
I don't want to
go-to
be the man
person.
because
yeah.
I don't want to answer the phone all the time. But you really have a choice to set that up. Like, that's your own fault.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I hate to say that, but it's our own fault.
And if you make yourself that available, people are going to take advantage of your time.
Oh, listen to how many people get on me to this day about the way I answer my phone.
You answer your phone?
I don't answer my phone.
Because you don't?
That's the thing. I don't answer my phone.
Yeah.
Jim Nunley said in church Sunday, he's like, I couldn't believe it. You got back with me in 2 days.
Wow.
I know. That's pretty good, isn't it? Like, I
Yeah.
got back. Because I'm just not going to be, I learned a long time ago, I am not going to be that available to you.
Yeah.
Like, if you're dying, like, get a hold of me. But if you're unorganized and you want me to be a part of your disorganization, I'm not doing it.
You're right. Yeah.
Like, you don't just call me because it's a random thought on you. Like, you teach yourself these things. Like, just don't, like, oh my gosh, I just thought, so somebody else should be available
Yep.
to that instant thought. So
Yeah. To me, it's just a personality thing, I'm sure, but I would never be like, I'm calling the pastor, for this problem. Like, that's just not how my brain works. My brain works in the sense of if I need prayer, I need help, I'm going to reach out to my people around me and that I'm in community with, you know?
Right.
And I think that's another big thing is people need to understand that our prayers all are heard the same way. And if you know what I mean? I think people think they have to come to you or somebody, in ministry when they're going through something where it's like everyone can and should be equipped to help, you know?
right.
So, yeah, I don't.
Yeah, no,
I
I
just
just,
think it's-
like I said, I think it's hard. And I think as
it
a
is.
wife, you know, because I know in the beginning when we first planted the church and we're going down the roads and a lot of people are like, well, Sherry's not really doing anything. I'm like, she's raising my children. Like she doesn't have to be doing everything. Like that's not.
And why is that? That's like something that people assume has to happen.
Well, I'm guessing, because I never really paid this. I'm guessing that's like a church model thing. Like the
I
pastor,
think it is. Yeah.
pastor's wife is just going to be. I mean,
part of
later
it.
on, like Sherry did a bunch of women's groups and stuff. But when people would always say like, "Boy, I don't ever really see Sherry," when they don't see Sherry in that, and even
Like,
you
she's
know,
home with my 3 kids, and
yeah, because
well,
even
and
Sarah,
then it turned into
yeah, because even Sarah has
7.
asked the question like, what is the expectation? And I said, to love me and take care of me. That's the expectation. The
I love that
rest
she
of it-
asked that.
The rest of it, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Over time. Like there is no, you married the pastor and so now you
have to
this
be a certain way.
obligation
Yes.
of what that looks like. And I think that's why I was saying, bringing it back to, for you, like guarding, finding the rhythm, figuring out that.
Yeah, and that's very much what I stay at home with
Yeah.
our kids. I do babysit as well, and then I help out here, very little in the children's ministry.
Very little is not.
Well, very little compared to like.
That's not an accurate statement. You do a lot. To
Well,
help out.
compared to like, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
you're
just
helping with meals. That's a lot hosting people. That's huge.
for what?
When you have people over to your house,
Oh,
you have
yeah,
meals, that's
yeah.
huge. That takes a lot of
It
time.
is.
So,
It's a lot.
So
Well, thank
give
you for
yourself more
acknowledging
credit.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
for
it
sure.
is.
Because that is for sure the hardest part of it all is being a stay-at-home mom and just taking care of your family. It takes so much time and so much effort because I don't want to just, like, for me, I don't want to just go through the motions. I want to enjoy it. I want to soak it up. And so with that, you put in a lot of effort, and that can be heavy sometimes, but you know, it's a tough balance, but that's where my focus is. It's where I feel called, and I just, children are my heart. They always have been. That's always been something I was sure of, that if I ever spend time serving, or, you know, my time devoted in any way, it would be in children's. And so, yeah, I try to lean into that. And at the end of the day, sometimes you're like, are we doing it all right? Like, is everything, are we
doing enough?
Are we doing enough?
Everybody says the same thing. And I said, listen, if you are loving the Lord first, and you are pushing into a deep relationship with him, you will do enough. I mean, I don't know. Is there such a thing? I mean, is there such a thing of enough? Like, it's never enough.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. You can always do
enough.
more.
It'll never be enough. You will never be enough. Your family will never be enough. You can't have enough relational ministry time. You can't have enough. You will always be lacking.
Yeah.
And you got to figure out, so if that's true, then how do we honor God in the things that we lack? And that is because we trust him. Because the more we push into him, the way that I can go home at peace with undone things at the church, and Jennifer, Nick, like, they've been a part of this. Like, there were a lot of times, like, we're not doing, and we're not doing, and we're not doing. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
We're not ready. We don't have, there are no people there. So I'm like, you just keep pressing into the Lord. We're going to keep pressing into the Lord, because we're going to trust him for the things that we aren't. And I never want us to be a church that can meet all of the needs and get everything done and have a program for every single thing. Like, then we take out that piece that's the most important, which is, at the end of the day, God says he will build his church. And when he builds his church, the gates of hell won't prevail. But the gates of hell prevailed against the church for a long time because we've tried to build something on our own. Our own hard work, our own time, our own effort, our own whatever that is. And I think we should work hard. Like, that's scriptural. Like, we should work hard. We should love, like, all that. But at the end of the day, if this is ever going to be anything that glorifies him, then it's got to be him.
Right.
So if we're doing it all and propping it all up, then it's really not, you know, him in those situations. So in everything we do, we gotta push into that, and then just trust him. Like, I mean, you'll see this with your kids. Will you ever be enough for your kids?
No.
Yeah. Will you ever be enough for your husband? Like, those things are just never enough. But God is.
Yeah.
You know,
he fills those gaps.
Yeah.
For
we
sure.
can just press into those things and then watch him work.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, you've been an hour already.
I did it.
So if you're given, like, I mean, we didn't get into a lot of you know, your story, but if you were looking at the challenges of being a young mom, there's a lot of young moms at Life Church today when it comes to your faith, when it comes to being a wife, when it comes to raising kids. What would be some advice that you would give to young moms today?
Whew.
And it doesn't have to just be one or two things, like.
Find your people. I think being a stay-at-home mom can, you can isolate very easily, or not even a stay-at-home mom, and, you know, any young mom, it's easy to isolate.
Right.
So stay in community with people, find your people, and, like you know, just said, lean in to the Lord. That's got to come first and foremost, and just, be in scripture daily, do your devotion, you know what I mean? Settle your heart with the Lord. And I've noticed when I start my day, I used to, like, not read my Bible till like midday, and then sometimes it would trickle not till like the evening. But when I start my day in the Word, it just feels better. It just always feels better. So
see, and I think that's the funny thing, like rhythm, right? Like, you find it. Like,
true.
Some people are morning people, some people are mid-afternoon, but you find what works for you. Find the rhythm where you feel the most fulfilled. Find the rhythm. And again, don't be don't be mad when sometimes it changes. Like, don't be upset because somebody else does it at this time and you're doing it at this time.
Yes.
Somebody
Don't
else
compare.
does more
For
and somebody
sure.
else does less.
Yeah.
Like,
Not to focus on that. And to be, there's this quote I heard and I've been thinking about it. I think it's, don't worry about the perfection of your heart, but the direction of your heart. And just, I like that because it's just like, I think we're always striving to have it all, to be perfect, and that's never going to happen. But as long as your heart is in the direction of going towards and deeper with the Lord, that's all you can do.
Yeah, that seems like a theme lately. Like
Really?
from podcast people, find your people, right? Find your people, find your rhythm.
Yeah.
Yeah, work on your heart. Like that just seems like, especially the find your people.
Yeah,
You know, I mean,
that's everything for us.
Yeah, I think
you got to
that's
have that.
Yeah, you keep hearing that over and over again. If you find the right people, you put yourself in community, and community more than just a little, like in deeper community. When you say find your people, that's, you know, those people that you can come to, you know, all
For
of the
the
time.
hard things.
Yeah. The people like when we talked about Sunday, the people are going to help you throw your anchor down when your ship's
Yes,
going out
exactly.
of control. Like those are the people that you can call. You know, we said that in our men's group last night. Like, what does that look like? You know, and yeah, when you know that somebody cares about your life, right? So we were talking about kids. So the thing with children is they will come to you if they know you care.
Yes.
Right. If you think about what you try to create in all of your life, like your kids will come to you and talk about football because they know you care about football, right? They'll come and talk to you about certain things because they know you care about it. Is the reason they don't come in some of these other areas is because we show we don't care, right? So we were talking about that in men's group last night, and I said, like, if we create that environment with our kids, or really with anybody, if you show, you can't do this with everybody, but if you show, I care about you, I care about your life, I care more than the weather, I care more than like, if I care, then those are your people.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Those are the people that you can have influence on. Those are the people that are going to have influence. Like, those are the things that are going to go in that right direction.
Yeah.
You know, so, well, again, I'm thankful for the beginning of the story, you know, and I pray that I can be a part of the end of the story, right? Like seeing all of these things happen and seeing you guys grow, and it's like I said, it's so cool. I'd say this to Nelson Little all the time. I'm like, you know what? One of the coolest things in the world is that I used to pray for you and Thaddeus, you know, all of the time. I can remember when I hired Nelson, and I'd get up and I had to look out my window every Sunday morning to make sure that he came to work. And then the one morning I wake up and he's in jail. He's in jail. You know, and the things with that, but you see these people that you've been praying for when they were kids and what God is doing in their life now, you know, and the same with Taylor and with your family and the things that are happening. Like, how neat is it to see those stories develop, right?
Yeah,
To see the power of God in changing the lives of people, and then seeing how he's going to use them. A surrendered life, like you said, like when you get to the point of surrender, isn't it cool to see what God will do when you get to that point? So we're excited to be able to be on that journey with you. We're excited for what you're doing here, and all of the, you know, the love that you're putting into the kids, into the people. I mean, it means a lot, you know, and we're very, very thankful for you. So if you're watching this, so if you watch or listen, make sure that you like, share, or comment. So when this comes out on Facebook, make sure that you share this so that we can get it out on a lot of other people's pages. If you haven't met Erika, make sure you come up and say hi. She's a first and second service. Right? So she's in
I bounce around.
Yeah, she's
Just
around
depends.
most of the time. Make sure that you come up and say hi. And again, introduce yourself, and just great young lady, and super excited about what God's doing in your life. So
Awesome.
thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.